Hello, yes. Well, my name is Elliot Stewart, and I do Comedy Lover's Guide, but I am very obsessed with weird and strange comedy. But fortunately, I've got the right people to talk to, the Electric Head. How are you?
Hello.
Very good. Hello. I'm not sure where to look. Do we look in the camera here?
I'm
looking at you two.
Yes. So basically, these are amazing duo of, I could say, surreal creators. I've met them back in 2007, and the great thing is they're still doing this now. They've got an improvised version of their show coming up very, very soon. So they're going to tell us all about that and lots of other things besides. So, well, how did it all start for you, let's say?
Oh, how did it all begin?
Begin?
The real story, at the beginning of our improv shows, we do have a little introduction that actually is true. I don't think people think it is, but we did technically meet in abandoned Victorian asylum.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah.
Hang on, if I close this, will it carry on recording?
Don't press anything.
Sorry, right. So, yeah, we were actually...
The flow is back. Well done. That was seamless. I don't think anyone noticed that.
We were actually, in a gigantic Victorian psychiatric institution, which I used to work in, weirdly enough. And we were working on a film for Pat Higgins, a little plug for Pat there, the wonderful Pat Higgins, who, because we like to sell stuff, as we were discussing. No, I'm joking, I'm kidding. Pat's new film is available. No, I'm joking. I should really plug it, but I'm not going to. Me and Al are both in it again.
This is very succinct and clear as an introduction of how we met. Good job. I think
we were on. Yeah, Al was the director of photography, and I was in the film. Doing a really excellent Irish accent, which I think Al will corroborate.
So yeah, the first scene we shot, Cy came into the room and did his first line as his character. I didn't really know him. We'd met, but I didn't really know him at this point. And he asked me, "How's the accent?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's really good. It's a good sort of southern drawl." And he said, "It's Irish." So we bonded from there. But yeah, we just got chatting on that. Realized we had similar tastes in comedy. Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, Monty Python, silly, strange things. It was at the premiere of that film that my girlfriend got chatting to Cy. Cy revealed that he had a man in a jar, which is a weird thing.
I've got the man here.
Girlfriend, but there we are.
Man in a jar. Ah, hello, little man in a jar.
This is Zosimos.
Yeah.
Made many years ago, and I had him, and I hadn't really used him for anything. I just had him sat around the flat. Used to talk to him occasionally, and I told Al's girlfriend, and she said, "Oh, Al will like that. You should tell him." And then he said,
she came over and said, "Don't go and speak to that guy over there. He has a man in a jar." And I said, "No, she didn't say that. She said, you want to do comedy? This guy might have a similar sense of humor." And we kind of just decided to get together, and strangely enough, we sort of improvised a little bit just to kind of try and connect with each other. Didn't realize that's what we were doing at the time, but we were.
And here you are sort of doing it now, because I know that you've done podcasts, and I met you at the Camden Fringe a long time ago, and you had a t-shirt, because I thought you could get them, and apparently there was only one t-shirt and you were wearing it.
So I thought it was funny, actually. The director had made some t-shirts for his film, and I thought, I asked him what the website was, and I thought, I'll make some t-shirts for me and Al. So I went to the website. I didn't have much money, nothing's changed, but I thought, oh bloody hell, that's what's that, 29 quid or whatever it was for one t-shirt, and so I just ordered one for myself. And I remember when we met you, Elliot, you said to me, "Oh, you've got t-shirts and everything," and I was like, yeah. But literally we had like one t-shirt, that was it, and I couldn't even afford one for Al. So
I remember there being a prop in the show, which I don't know whether you still have, which was like a mind reading device with a tube that came out. So who designed that? Did you design
unfortunately,
that?
There's a cupboard back there, and that cupboard is full of Electric Head props. And in that is the telepathy helmet, which I won't try and get out now because it's going to take a while. And
it's very precious about the telepathy helmet. It's carried. We have 3 people who carry it in a glass case everywhere Cy goes. Yeah,
covered with a cloth, and then we take it off. And no, but originally I had a different telepathy helmet. but that unfortunately, yeah, that over the years kind of bits fell off. But I've got some of the original bits. In lockdown, I made a new telepathy helmet. I bought an open-faced rocket helmet, and I spray painted it, and I put some of the old props on and some new flashing lights, LEDs and stuff you can get now. But yeah,
we all need hobbies.
Yeah, definitely during that time.
Hobbies? I mean, that's my life.
Well, like Bruce Lacey, who used to build lots of strange, wonderful things. He came from the Norwich area where I'm at, but also like the Bonzo Dog Doodle Band, where you get your name from, the Electric Head. I can't remember which song it's from.
It's from My Pink Half of the Drainpipe. The full line is Lord Snooty's Giant Poisoned Electric Head, which we almost went with, and then we decided let's just shorten that a little bit.
It was a bit of a mouthful for the posters. Lord Snooty's Giant Electric Head, to be fair. But
possibly the Electric Head is confusing enough.
But there was the guy, on that, as you say, Elliot, who made all the different robots and different automata and different things. What's his name, Al?
Wait,
Roger Spear.
Roger Lacey was the local.
Roger Spear, I think, made.
That's it. Yeah, he was the one. Yeah, I think he made all the stuff. Yeah.
And they all work just as well as yours do.
Didn't you meet one of the Bonzos? There's a video of you, some silk spoons.
We did. Yeah, it was an amazing night, actually.
Yeah, we used to go along when we were first sort of finding our feet with the comedy. We used to go along, was it the Half Moon in Putney, to see the Bill Posters band. So they had all sorts of guests on there, and we had some good time.
Sam was amazing, wasn't he? Sorry.
Yeah,
he had his bright orange dungarees on, and he looked a bit like sort of Father Christmas, and he was lovely. Yeah, we bought him a beer, and he showed us, he demonstrated a little bit of his spoon playing, but that was nothing compared to what he did on stage when he really went for the spoons. But he was a really lovely fella, such a nice guy, and it was a crazy performance. I mean, they had the original Bonzo's vacuum Hoover there, which they played on stage. And different things like that. So they had some crazy acts on, but it was amazing. Yeah, it was really good, inspiring.
I would say the interesting thing about the Bonzos, and which is different to your one, is that you've got a world or characters. And Bonzos, I always felt that you have Vivian Stanchel at the front and Neil Innes as well, and everything, but they didn't really have a collection of characters so much as lots of fun, surreal ephemera. But with the Electric Head, I just feel like you've got a whole world of different things or different people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think so. Al's like, we do. No, we do. Well, I think some characters come back, don't they? I mean, in the early days, we definitely within the podcast created more of a world with more of a group of characters, like Al playing Gloria Sinclair, who was always one of my favourite characters. He was a down on her heels, like TV presenter, who had basically sort of faded. She'd done morning TV, Al, I think, hadn't she?
Yeah, she was very much a wine on the cornflakes kind of morning TV presenter.
And
that's the thing, is like we've always generated loads of characters. Really, that's kind of what I think most of our comedy is based on, is just coming up with characters. And again, in the improv, that's I wonder how many characters we've created in our various improv nights that have vanished into the ether. There's definitely a few.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, like a lot of people that can be slightly afraid of improv, I think there was going to be a Red Dwarf improv tour, but they realised the actors weren't really sure that was their thing, because they're more scripted actors.
All the things to try and improvise, Red Dwarf, incredibly difficult.
I mean, I'm a big sci-fi comedy surreal fan, so I was very chuffed to discover that you are leading into the improv, but not in a sense of whose lines it anyway, so much as I imagine, well, when you talk to the audience, how do you get the improv out of them? It isn't like there's a Clive Anderson or anything. How do you?
So we did start with exactly that kind of whose line format. Just before lockdown, we did a short form improv show, which my girlfriend Debbie hosted, because we needed a host, so she was kind of our foil on that show. But because I always loved whose line is it anyway, and it seemed like just a good way to get on stage and be funny with people. And we would bring in guests and have some good fun. And those shows were great, but those are the ones that led us on to, when you're doing a game that's 3 or 4 minutes, it was fun, but you kind of feel like it wasn't quite suited to what we always felt like. It was fun, but not entirely satisfying for us. And then, to be honest, I discovered long form improv, which I had no real experience or knowledge of. And I started to hear about it. Other improvisers would talk about it. And then the Middleditch and Schwartz specials came on Netflix, which we watched and just thought, oh, this looks really interesting. So from there, we sort of stopped doing we occasionally do the short form stuff, but in other shows, like Plug for Extreme Improv, who are loads of fun, they often have us on. Cy usually becomes their champion, much to his regret.
By mistake, always by mistake. It has to be said.
But yeah, that's where we thought, well, we can build characters, we can tell stories, and we can be silly. So it kind of led us to that long form idea.
But I think it's been, that's the thing. Yeah, I think we were saying before that improv has been woven through what we've done, weirdly. So like when we first did the podcast in the electric shed, which was a little soundproof shed at the bottom of our friend's garden, we had little bits of scripts and ideas and stuff that we noted down, but we never had time to prepare for them.
We essentially gave ourselves prompts and just kind of flew off them a little bit. And
yeah, so we'd pick up a song and then we'd like do something on GarageBand and we'd sing a song, but we, none of it was ever planned, really, was it? None of the original.
Very rarely, yeah, rarely. We would go away and try and rewrite things occasionally, and then come back the next week and do like a better version of it. But to answer your question about how we get stuff for this show from the audience, we start the show basically just having a little chat with someone in the audience. We usually ask them if they're excited about something or scared about something, or, it's a fairly traditional improv beginning. And then we take whatever it is they tell us and then weave this kind of strange tale out of it. And we never know where it's going. Sometimes it goes horror. Sometimes it goes absolutely ludicrous. Sometimes it just spins right off the rails into lunacy. And sometimes we've had a few where it comes together really nicely, and we've actually created a little bit of. But
there is a technique behind it, amazingly, because I think with the short form improv, it was more like because improv terrifies me. So Al said, "Come along, we're doing a Whose Line Is It Anyway style thing," and I went along and just have a few beers and just kind of make stuff up, which is okay, I think, in the short form when you've got the short games and stuff, being silly and stuff. And then when Al said, "Come along, we've got to practice the long form improv," I said, "Well, practice? It's improv. What are you, mad?" So I turned up with some booze and kind of started drinking. But Al quite cleverly said, "Okay, I'm going to record this." But in a Scottish accent. So I was right, I'm going to record this. He loves it.
Sorry, I thought you said a Scottish accent.
He loves it when I do a Scottish accent. And then he said, and then after, as he watched me get steadily more and more drunk throughout the hour of improv, he said, "Okay, right, now I'm going to play it back to you." So then we watched it back. And then I saw myself then listening less and less to what Al was saying, talking over him, not doing the yes and thing, and just going off on sort of crazy stuff that didn't fit in. So he'd be saying one thing and I'd be saying, "Oh, let's go to the island of Atlantis." So, but not in a Scottish accent, obviously. And we'd just be, and then he was like, "There, you see?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, that doesn't work at all, does it?" So he said, you need to practice some technique. And so now we kind of practiced the improv in order to do the show that we're doing now. Strangely, just the technique of it. You know what I mean?
So it's more like so it's less of a template and no setup gags. I mean, I used to do improv lots myself, and we would have really drunken workshops where we would try and invent brand new games via beer and crisps, and usually we'd invent something very strange because we didn't want to do Party Quirks and World's Worst. We didn't realize the long form existed. I love the fact that you're combining your comedy has evolved and changed, and I think that's really important because it's an art artists change. They don't just knock up the same stuff all the time. So I'm calling you artist. There you go. You're artist. There you go. I mean, who would you say are your? I know it's such a cliche thing to say, because who are you most influenced by? Without saying, you don't steal from people. Bonzos aside, you're thinking, who are your favourites? It doesn't necessarily mean that you copy them, but who do you watch comedically for pleasure?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it just goes back. It covers so many things, doesn't it? I think I find inspiration in almost any. A lot of the inspiration for comedy for us, I don't know if Cy will say the same, but it's not so much from comedy. A lot of it's from movies and
yeah, for sure.
God,
yeah,
anywhere really. I mean, even the Bonzos, it's not really comedy. It's a band, so it comes from a lot of places. In terms of comedy, you know, I've always loved the slightly weirder stuff. You know, Vic and Bob, Harry Hill, Red Dwarf, as we mentioned. I'm a big fan of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, and I'd say one thing, and I think we probably talked about this out when I'm sure we did when we met, was Douglas Adams. And as you said, these kind of Doctor Who influence as well. I mean, that he wrote for Doctor Who. I think one of my favourite Doctor Who's is City of Death, which I think is mainly penned by Douglas Adams. And it's very funny, you know, it's humorous. And Tom Baker is great in that comedy role. And we're both great Whovians. And you mentioned you were Whovian earlier, so I've just got Al's favourite Doctor is actually here with me. He's very small. So you might not be able to see.
Look at that.
Oh, hello there. It's Sylvester McCoy, and he's.
You're not going to do his accent, are you?
Oh, hello, sorry. How are you doing? No, he doesn't. He does.
He's in the room.
He's Irish, is he?
Yeah.
But here he is. He's Sylvester McCoy. We are. Yeah, there's lots of humour in different things, aren't there? To be honest, I think different genres all over the place. I mean, there's dark humour we get into. League of Gentlemen is one that we've always really loved, I think.
I didn't realise when I was younger, one of the first memories I have of actually discovering comedy, which I didn't realise it was comedy at the time, is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio show. So I had the tapes, and I would listen to those till they wore out. I just loved those tapes, but I never really, because I was very young, I knew they were funny and I knew they made me laugh, but I thought of them more as a story, as an adventure that just happened to be funny, because I love the adventure of it, which is, you know, that's where my love of radio comedy definitely started, was those original Hitchhiker series. And also, you know, that's, I think even for our long form improv, because it's not sketches, we try and weave a story. It's very Hitchhikers to me. It's that kind of.
Yeah, I think so, because that is definitely
has a bit of an improvised feel in terms of its narrative, you know.
Yeah, definitely part of our influence is going on an adventure. When we did the later podcasts in lockdown, we did a thing called Whip Away, which we kind of just made up, really. But it was two old brigadiers, a captain and stuff, in a hot air balloon, basically, that then it turned out could travel through time. And then they would whip one of us back to a place in the past, and then we'd go and meet like famous characters from the past. Bram Stoker, I think we did.
What we do with that essentially is one of us would write some facts or some ideas about a historical figure or a fictional figure, and then not tell the other one anything about it. And then so one person was trying to steer it with facts and figures. So those were fun, and I think without realizing, again, that was us dipping into improv again.
Would you say also, like, you obviously get on very well, but do you ever argue about a joke that you wouldn't do, or that, well, I wouldn't say that's too odd, or maybe that's too normal? Do you ever get a thing where you're going, oh, let's not do that? That's, that's not really.
To be honest, we tend to agree on what we find funny. There's certain things that we allow the other one to do because we trust each other. And that happens in the improv all the time. Again, this is all exactly how our writing process is. And the improv is just us going through that process in an hour in front of an audience, which is both terrifying and kind of exhilarating, because sometimes we do slightly disagree. But Cy might think something's funny and I'll think, I'm not sure I understand this, but give it a go. See if it works. We tend to disagree more on the structure and the narrative, but I think that's just natural collaboration.
Yeah, the script that we won the Galton and Simpson award with was because that was kind of the beginning of it was a labour of love for me, where I was just chucking everything into it, and it was kind of like because I was in a hellish job at the time as well, so I felt like I was kind of going through hell. So then decided to adapt like Dante's Inferno, because Al had said, well, on radio you can do anything. So and I was like, well, yeah, we could do Dante's Inferno, we could go to hell. Do you know what I mean? So that was the inspiration for it. But then I chucked all sorts of other odd bits about how I was feeling, and poems and songs and weird stuff. And I think it was about 2.5 hours long. Sent it over to Al, and he was like, I really enjoy this. There's some great ideas in there. And then proceeded to basically cut it up and throw bits away.
No.
But me and Al, we've realised we only ever argue really on text. So if we're texting each other, we misinterpret what the other person's saying. We've only worked this out recently after a few years, but we were in lockdown during that period, and I was sending him bits of, the script, and he was saying, oh, this needs to be written, and I was trying to rewrite, and then he was writing scenes and actually making them better and making the narratives. But I was like, well, what about my bit? Do you know what I mean? And I got really kind of, it's quite childish about it. And I was like, you can't take that out. And then I just put it back in the next edit that I sent back to him, and then he'd take it out again. And it was, so we ended up really at loggerheads.
Discussions on that. It was never really about gags. It was always about there was the odd gag that we would discuss, but we never ever were precious about the gags. What we were precious about, the conversations we would have, are about the philosophy, or what is the message of this scene, or these things that are kind of subtexts, but that once we started to dig down into it, we're like, well, how do we resolve this? Or in that script we had Karloff going through the 9 layers of hell, but in the original draft he just sort of was passive. He just sort of moved through the 9 layers of hell, and that's what
you changed, which was ideal, was that he wasn't just looking at what was going on. He was thrown into each scene.
He had to achieve something in each layer in order to move on to the next one. So it's little things like that. That was never an argument, but it's just whenever you're changing any script, there's a bit of friction. But I think that's probably when we do our best work as well, when we have that passion to get it done. Yeah.
And it's because it was funnier, and I think that's probably why I hated it. And I'm taking.
So this is the.
But Al was kind of like, well, what about if he's in because there's the shopping malls of Tantalus, or whatever, and he's kind of observing it. But then, and there was still a bit we kept where he's observing Sisyphus kind of walking up with his heavy bags of shopping up to the bus stop. But then, I was like, what about if he ends up in the supermarket? Do you know what I mean? And he gets grabbed by the automatic tills, the claw, and all this kind of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, he's right. God damn him. It's right again.
What you've got there is interesting, because Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones used to sneak in. You probably know about this. When they were making Holy Grail, you got 2 directors at once. So what used to happen is when the edit was done, Terry Gilliam used to creep into the editing studio and he'd edit his bits. And then Terry Jones would come in and edit his bits. And they did, after a while, they kind of lost track about whose cut was which and whose one was that. So, but you end up with this lovely epiphany. That's not the right word. The word where you all glue together. Equilibrium, maybe.
That's something.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bit.
What it is.
That's something that when I reread the scripts that we did, so the original version of Go to Hell, or the one that we landed on, was about an hour, and the one that we used for the Galton and Simpson award, Cy cut down to about half an hour. And when I look at it now, I honestly can't quite remember.
Can't tell what's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favourite bit. That's what's missing. Because I thought, let me pretend I'm Al. And I was down to half an hour. And I said, what's he going to do? He's just going to take out Cy's favourite bits. So I just took out my own favourite. No, I'm kidding. That'll go.
But now you've got that particular award, and I remember you doing a Red Dwarf thing as well. And I remember your short film where somebody was combing hair on eggs. So I've been following you. I'm aware of your creative output. What was that short film with the eggs? It was definitely...
That was the Cracks Are Showing.
That's it.
Which has the same title because this is the same two characters that basically go to hell. So yeah, it's kind of like the first pilot we did used those two characters, Scroat and Karloff, which is actually Annie MacPhail, who was the producer of The Mighty Boosh. I'm not name dropping. She was lovely, and we were lucky enough to work with her on developing that script. Okay, I'm name dropping. Annie MacPhail, the producer of but she was lovely. She was great to work with, and she said, I think in that Al's character Karloff was the main thing, and I was playing a few other kind of characters throughout it, and she said no. She said he needs a nemesis. There's got to be two. You're a double act as well in the way you work. He needs a nemesis. So we came up with the idea of Mr. Scroat. He's the kind of epitome of everything that Karloff isn't. So Karloff's an artist and he's a genius and he wants to achieve. He's a poet and all that. And Mr. Scroat is really kind of grey and mean. And do you know what I mean? He's like, get a job. And all those kind of things that the artists kind of fight against, I guess. And beige. He's very beige as a character. But yeah, and so then that really works. I think those two characters, it was really nice to have. I mean, I like playing the villain anyway, but Al was really beautiful at playing the he's not an everyman Karloff, really, is he? But he's somebody that you admire and love.
He's sort of the embodiment of the spirit of art and freedom,
creativity,
that kind of thing. Yeah, so he's a really fun character. I get to play this character, who's the embodiment of optimism and artistic freedom, and then Cy has to play Mr. Scroat, who eats cold rice pudding,
porridge and masturbates to Cliff Richard calendars. I mean, but are we allowed to say that? I don't know. But we sorry about that. But no, it does infer that in the film. But no, it's kind of like Vivian Statchel versus Michael Gove. That's how I see.
Well, let's hope those two people in real life aren't connected, so because they'll come and find you. So
quick, ask another question.
So when it comes to like coming up with ideas for all the things that you've done, has it been, do you create something quickly or do you let things sort of evolve?
Both.
Yeah. Both. We do tend to come up with ideas quite quick when we're together. But we don't they tend to take quite a long time to work on. And then there's other projects such as the Go to Hell stuff that's kind of a combination of really Cy's initial idea, because Cy loves the research and he loves to pack it with I
love research. So yeah, I put myself through the hell at the moment. I mean, it was 4 years for Go to Hell, then 5 minutes for Al to ruin it. No, I'm joking. no. But then it was another year and a half, I think, for Al to structure it, change it, put in new gags, make it into, do you know what I mean? Something that was good. But do you know what I mean? But basically to cut out all the extraneous stuff, and also, like we said earlier, like to change it into the guys in the situation. But also, but I've been working on the sequel, which is Purgatory now, for I realised a further 4 years, which is, so then, because I love research, I love doing the research. But actually, I've got to the stage now where I'm like, oh, God, no, I don't want to. So I've actually now I had a pile of books by the side of my bed this high of like research material. I've now said, enough research. I'm fed up with the reads, but I've enjoyed it because I think with that you have to look at Dante's Inferno, you have to read Purgatory. Do you know what I mean? You have to look, analyze it, look at all that, and also look at sort of I looked at sort of medieval visions of hell and purgatory and how purgatory originated, and then thinking about how it relates to the modern world and all those kind of different things. So yeah, I get really carried away with that, but that's not necessarily funny. It's the thing. But some of the notes are, because then suddenly you look back and you think that's insane. How could people have thought that? Do you know what I mean? So you do, yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of humour in there, but then it's just then putting an electric head twist on it, I guess.
I think that's where the improv came from, because our written projects started to take longer and longer because we started to learn more and more about how to do it. And also there is the thing of, if we were commissioned tomorrow to write a series, I think we could probably do it reasonably quickly. But when you've got all the time in the world, and no deadline, then you're just going to keep kind of perfecting it and getting it right and stuff like that. And we've done that so many times that we needed something else to do in the meantime, really. So that's kind of where the improv came along. We thought, what can we do whilst we're doing this? Because otherwise you have these long periods of writing, which for an act that's trying to get themselves known a bit more is always a bit of a death, I think. So
yeah, there's the crafting out there. Sorry, Al. Yeah, but there's the crafting of a script, and I think, but at the end of the day, yeah, we have got sort of 17 coming on 18 years. Sorry, Al. He's had to put up with me of material that is quite crafted and written, and that we have spent a lot of time writing. So that's great to have that. But then after lockdown, Al kind of was convincing me to do the long form improv, and then I thought, oh God, and then I thought, this is terrifying. But then I was desperate to get back on stage and perform with Al, and just like for the two of us just to have fun and play the characters and stuff. But we didn't have anything written, and Al was like, I told you, long form improv, and he was right again. So I was like, I said, yeah, I would love to get on stage. Let's get on stage, and then we started practicing it, and we did the 10-minute long form, didn't we? And then we now we've done the hour. But it actually feels, and I think Al is right in that, it feels like our true kind of electric heads place to be, really. It feels like our world, because it has got that improv stuff. So it's our kind of minds working together, but live, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Or in the moment, which is quite a strange phenomenon, probably.
Yeah.
So if you were offered, if BBC Three or BBC Four came waving money at you, it's difficult for you to decide, we've got 17 years worth of variant stuff. What would you, if you write, that's it, they've come calling, what would you do? You've got a show, what would you do?
That's the tricky thing, really.
For me, improv is very much a live experience. I think there's an element, Saturday Night Live at one point kind of got that improv feel a little bit. So I think there's room for it. But for me, that's very much a live experience for an audience. It doesn't quite translate as well. So in terms of it would be something that told a story, something that incorporated all the visuals that we wanted. And for me, if it was TV, something that could stand up to the visuals that we feel we can create with radio, which is probably the biggest challenge of something. Yeah. Because we feel very free doing radio stuff of where, we can go to hell, like we said. On TV, that's a bit more of a challenge. So I imagine if that ever happened, we'd have some parameters to work within, which I think would probably be really exciting, to be honest, because I always enjoy having boundaries and trying to create something within that.
We did a thing, My Pink Half of the Drain Pipe, obviously the name of the song, which we're named after, like a sitcom thing. I really enjoyed that. We did that in lockdown. Al obviously being really clever with his editing, and as a director of photography as well, worked out that
it was such a nightmare. It was such a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. But it could be
That's a good
filmed
example.
by his other half and my other half on phones in separate locations, and then
So the idea of a sitcom being, the premise of a sitcom is two people trapped together. It's Porridge, it's Red Dwarf. But we decided, because this is how our brains work, at the very moment in time where we are not trapped together, let's do a sitcom about us being trapped together. Right. So we shot it as if we were both in the same house. So you would get, you'd get a close-up and then a reverse shot where we're interacting, but we were just shooting it in our separate houses and then not mentioning the continuity.
I've got a funny story about this. This is me and Al getting hacked off with each other via text again. Is that my other half was obviously getting a bit tired. She was filming. I was like, no, Al says we need to do this again. We need more light. Oh, you've got to do it from this angle. And she was like, for God's sakes, do you know what I mean? Why are you doing this? And I'm like, this is what we do. Come on, you're helping me now. You're part of the electric head, So she was like, yeah, great. So I had this. We've got a big ginger cat. So I had to be, sorry, I'm making myself laugh. I had to be the king of Atlantis, and I've got a green morph suit. So I changed into the green morph suit. I actually had some contact lenses that I was going to once wear to a Halloween party, but I forgot to put them in, whatever. Anyway, so they were like silver contact lenses. So I put them in, and then I made a beard out of the cat's hair. It's a long-haired cat. So I thought, this will make a really good beard. And it was all in the brush. So I made this beard and stuff. So I had these contact lenses in. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's fine. So then she shoots the scene. And then after that scene, it was quite tiring. And we spent the whole day doing it with Al coming back and forth. No, you need to do the shot like this, like that. We were like, that's it. We're done now. So I took the contact lenses out, threw them in the bin, took the beard off, the cat beard, threw it in the bin. And then we both started drinking wine, as you do in lockdown. And then Al was desperately trying to get through. I was like, well, what does he want now? I'm like, okay, yeah, what is it? And he's like, no, you've done it the wrong way round.
So everything we had to do, I had sketches of everything, storyboards. So, if there's a guy in the middle, your eye line's there, your eye line's there. I have to
break the line, you see.
You got to film it right to left, and he was filming it all the wrong way.
We at that stage, my other half, she was like, what? We have to. You're fucking joking. I said, we got to do it. It's the last. We have to do it. It's the last scene. I said, it's not going to work. And she's like, oh, hey, Al. And I was like, I know. And so I had to open up the bin, take the contact lenses out of the bin, wash them, put my saliva in them, and put them back in, then get the cat beard out of the bin, clean that off, put it back on, and do the whole scene again. It's
funny, in the final edit of that, when he's wearing all that, he seems a bit grumpier than he did in the first take.
And probably drunk.
Yeah, that was a really fun, that's a good example. We had all these limitations, and we just decided, let's do this epic sitcom, but we can't be together. And there was a bit of interest in that at the time. There was a few that quite liked it, producers, but it's so niche. Had lockdown, thank God it didn't, but had it lasted another few years, maybe we'd have a show by now.
We did actually. We sent that through to a producer who really loved it, and he sent it on to his team. They really loved it. We sent it to a few other places, and then lockdown ended. And they were like, well, we've got so many other projects backed up that we couldn't make during lockdown. We're now making those, and your one's not relevant anymore. So it was
it was fun.
It was.
It's that thing where you don't do topical humour, but you do take the mickey out of, or in an electric head way, that you spin normal things, like you mentioned, going to the shop and the claw coming to get you and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of vaguely satirical, but not in an obvious way. So do you have targets? Are there people that public people that you think, we'll throw them into the surreal mix and hope nobody notices?
I think we generally come from, I remember one of the first conversations when we first started trying out material together, we had we went to the pub after we'd written some stuff, and we're like, what is it we actually want to do? We got quite deep of like, what do we actually want to do here? I know obviously we want to be funny, but what is the act? And we started discussing the idea of Hitchhikers, that kind of, the universe is big. It's that kind of absurdity that kicks it off that we both were inspired by. And it was, I think, Cy who said, when you wake up in the morning and you realize, what's the phrase?
Yeah, that you're on a rock spinning around a fireball in a void.
And the idea that life is so absurd that anything you do within life is kind of a satire anyway.
And it's got, I think it's got more kind of absurd in which, like I was reading about mathematics recently, do you know what I mean, and stuff like that, because looking at some AI, maybe looking at exploring AI a little bit in the Purgatory script, because it is kind of topical, but it's an important sort of fundamental issue at the moment, I think, for a lot of people, a lot of artists as well. But yeah, mathematicians, there was one guy that shouted out something like, everything's solid, everything's provable, and there's this kind of German phrase, and he was saying that. And then it wasn't long after that they realized that everything wasn't provable, nothing was solid. And do you know what I mean? And people like Roger Penrose came along and was working with MC Escher and obviously like quantum physics and all that kind of thing. That they realized nothing is solid, nothing, you can't, do you know what I mean? Mathematics doesn't work like that, do you know what I mean? Even if you try and measure a straight line, it's infinite, and it goes on forever. If you get down onto, an atomic level, and then you're going in and in and in, nothing, there are no straight lines, there are no solid surfaces there, and there's chaos theory and all those kind of things. So at the end of the day, the world's got, more and more absurd, which is wonderful, really, because when you get those people in life that sort of say, oh yes, well, it's got to be like this, and this is the way it is, and then you're kind of like, well, not actually, is it? You know what I mean? It really isn't. That's not true, which is, it doesn't work in sort of everyday 9-to-5 jobs, unfortunately, which I found to my detriment, and I'm sure Al has as well.
I think that's it, that kind of absurdity is both, we discussed this right at the beginning, it's both terrifying and somewhat comforting. And I think that's kind of what we try and do in our comedy, is be terrifying and hopefully a little bit comforting. And they're both the same thing. So, the idea that every day you wake up, you are on a giant rock spinning around a radioactive fireball in a void is both terrifying, but also at certain times it can be a little bit comforting.
It's beautiful when you think about, and I suppose it's like memento mori, isn't it? Like, sort of, we're all going to die, and I'm not getting morbid with that at all, but it's, it's a fact, the kind of thing, and often I think if you have a kind of bereavement or something like that happens in your life, it's kind of like you step out to go to work, maybe it's a boring job or something you hate doing or whatever it is, and then you kind of think, God, it's really, it doesn't really matter, does it? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any, when somebody comes to you with really small bureaucratic kind of rules and says, oh no, but we've got to do it like this, your first thought is, well, it's really pointless and it doesn't make any sense. You can't say that to them.
The embodiment of that is in the Go to Hell characters, Karloff and Scroat, which is, I think, why we keep coming back to them, because it really is. And neither of them are right. And that's something that we pushed and pulled a little bit with Go to Hell, with finding an ending where we don't land anywhere, because there isn't really, if it is that absurd, no one's right. Even the guy that we believe isn't necessarily right about everything. So we had a bit of push and pull of like, how do we end this story? Essentially trying to find a unifying theory. Made it difficult for ourselves.
Karloff is beautiful. He realizes the absurdity. Obviously, he sees all these, he knows about quantum physics and all these kind of things. And Scroat is like laying down the rules. It's a very solid world and all these kind of things. But you do definitely have to have a kind of bit of both in order to survive in the world. You have to kind of. But it's weird. I was just thinking where we used a quote from Oscar Wilde for which was I think in the first one we did, which was going to be used for Karloff, but then we actually ended up using it for Scrope. So he ends up saying, human beings require slaves. Unless there are slaves to do the boring, ugly, uninteresting work, culture and contemplation become almost impossible. Which was it's actually a quote from Oscar Wilde. It doesn't sound like Oscar Wilde, but he's obviously commenting on society at the time. But do you know what I mean? But from a Scrope perspective, for him to say, human beings require slaves, it's so horrible coming out of his mouth, because he's saying it like, yeah, that's the way life is, as opposed to Oscar Wilde, I'm sure, was saying, unfortunately, this is the way life has become.
Because comedy, I always feel, is very, if it's good comedy, it should be anarchic, and it should take the powers that be down a couple of pegs, or many. Have you ever had to? I do know some comedians or even acts that actually despise their audience and want to trick them. But have you discovered that your audience are a certain type? Like you go and people dressed up as your yet,
Yeah, I mean, I think we find like-minded people that enjoy our humor. Certainly, people dressing up. When I did the alternative nights in Watford, I did an alternative comedy night called Salmon on the Mount. And I wasn't sure. I only did it in Watford because, it's where I live, so I wanted something local. But I had no idea if there was an appetite for that kind of comedy out there, because they really...
really, in Watford.
Yeah, they have a jongleurs, and, it's pretty, it's not considered as a place for alternative comedy. But when I put it on, it really, I've got long friends that I still have that were just people who came to those shows. And a lot of our audience that have stuck with us have come from those shows, I think, and they just latch onto it and they find this thing. And yeah, they did dress up as some of the characters. I had a character called Lemonhead, who was a man with a lemon for a head, who was only meant to be one gag, and then he ended up staying with me for a few years because people enjoyed Lemonhead. I'll bring him back.
Yeah, I think we should revive Lemonhead. I love Lemon. I love Al's character Lemonhead. Is amazing. But I think that was the thing about going to Watford, was that there's a great subculture, and in towns that people often perceive in a different way. These people kind of gathered together, and then we started doing shows at Watford Museum, which was wonderful and a lovely space to work in, where we kind of had a crowd of lovely artists and people, not all artists, but like-minded people coming along who, seemed to enjoy it and enjoy the craziness of it and all that kind of thing, which Al started off really at the, didn't you, Salmon on the Mount? And at the time when Al was doing that, I was working in a really awful job that actually inspired some of Go to Hell. At the time, and Al just said, "Oh, come along after work." And I said, "But we haven't got any material." And he was like, "Oh, don't worry about that." And I was like, "What?" Thank you. He said, "Just come along after work." He said, "Just see what happens." And I was like, "Okay, I hate my job. I'll do it." So and that's again, that was some of the part of the improv that kind of worked there. Got involved in Al's thing that he had going on, and then we did some radio shows again in Watford and some other crazy stuff, and then the improv was in Watford as well, wasn't it? But yeah, there's a lovely enclave of beautiful like-minded people there, I think, and creatively minded people.
And I think you really find that anywhere. I mean, our experience of it was just by chance, but I think these places and these people exist everywhere, and especially outside of London, you've got people who are looking for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there are people everywhere under the surface, I think, who kind of be crushed down.
I think at the moment TV is calling out for the electric head, because for me personally, other than on the internet, a lot of BBC, a lot of Sky stuff, it's all comedy dramas, panel shows, or reality shows. So I think we need an unreality show like the electric head, even. I always said the acoustic head. That could be one when you're unplugged or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Maybe that's what the improv is. Yeah.
Well, like you, we have done a few songs, over our time. I always try and stick a song in, and Al's like, oh, thank God, it's not another fucking song. But he's actually the musician. I can't actually play any instruments. Al can at least play ukulele and has some kind of musical talent, weirdly. But yeah.
So do remind me as we wrap up now. I think I was doing a Sylvester McCoy rolling R's then. And he does have the spoons. The Seventh Doctor does have the spoons, you see. So and you've got an ace jacket on. It feels down there. So what are the dates? Do remind me. What are the dates of your new up and coming improv show before we disappear?
I should have had this prepared, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Well, I know the first one. Our opening night is an unusual Saturday show. So it's on the 16th of March at 8:30 p.m. at the Museum of Comedy, which we love is really our home and has been for quite a long while now. Again, it's a brilliant space. Do you know what I mean? You just feel wonderful.
Really
they've got the booth where the Goons wrote in a pub there that was donated, I think, by Spike Milligan's daughter. And look, and I've got the Goon Show scripts here.
Oh yeah.
Very close to hand.
Yeah, the Museum of Comedy, I think, is the first venue that we've really found in London that has that, for us, that sense of it's similar sort of thing to we found in Watford of alternative people coming, is that it's just got that kind of vibe about it. As soon as you step in, I feel like even when you step into the Museum of Comedy, I like to think you're already kind of in the world of the Electric Head, because you're surrounded by all the things that have inspired us. So it's really nice.
It's lovely. Yeah, so that the opening night, 16th of March, 8:30 p.m. Saturday, 16th of March. Yeah, so if anyone can make it along to that, that'd be great. Because we'd love to have a good crowd in for the opening night, and then hopefully you'll come back. If nobody comes,
after that we've got the 11th of April, 9th of May, and the 6th of June. But the opening night on the 16th of March is we're trying to make that kind of a big kick-off to the short run.
Well, hopefully.
I mean, some people come and then so if you come to the opening night and you don't come back, we'll know that you didn't like it. But if you come to the opening night, you're like, oh, I do like that. I will come back. It's only once a month. So.
When I saw you guys in the Camden Fringe in 2007, you had quite the crowd in. But I do remember I was really enjoying it. But there were some people sort of going, not quite sure this is for us. Let's go, darling. And off they wandered. But they missed out. So, and obviously each show, I think you'll probably get a regular crowd in because each show is very different. It's improvised. So if people see the first one, episode 1, if you like, come and see 2, 3, and 4 over the months because as I've sort of discovered looking into your archive, you create and you rework and you refine all your surreal stuff. So I look forward to popping by myself. Definitely say hello. It's been a while. So
I'd love to have you, yeah.
Wear that T-shirt if you've still got it.
No, I don't have that. But we have new ones now. We have better, bigger, better merch than we used to. We have about 5 or 6 T-shirts now. I think at least. Actually, though, no, hang on. No, I didn't sell out this. I actually got an Electric Head patch made.
Well, if you've got an hour for him to find it on his jacket.
Yeah.
It's here. No, it is here.
Come along the show and see whether he's found it yet.
No, it's here. I swear, it's there somewhere.
This is what this interview's been building up to. Is the merch.
I'm excited.
Can't find it.
Panic in his eyes.
It's on the jacket. I know it is. It's here somewhere.
I feel like I should go. There it is, but I couldn't tell you where it is.
Oh, there it is. Look.
I was right.
Look at that.
Oh, look at that. That's very cool.
Nice.
There we are.
So Electric Head patch.
It was worth
those will be available soon because Elliot likes us to sell things on the on his show. So yeah, those will be available soon online. $5.99. Actually, I think it cost me about 20 quid. So it's
But thank you so much for joining me today. That was really awesome. I shall get this out and about. Thank you very much. The Electric Head.
Thank you for having us.
Yay.
Thank you.